everybody! Today I'm going to do a describing activity. So I want you to describe with me. We're going to use our describing tool that we've used in speech therapy before. Remember, when we use our describing tool, we have to do the group, what you do, what it looks like, what it's made of, the parts it has, where you find it, and what else you know. So I'm going to walk you through this together, and you're going to describe with me an object I grabbed from my house. Then I want you to get a different object from your house and describe with me. Are you ready? Let's go. Here's this object I have. What's the name of it? Have you named this object? If you said fork, you're right. Now let's describe our fork. Thing 1, we're going to describe the group. What group or category does fork belong to? Take your time. Let's think. Is a fork a school supply? Is a fork clothing? Is a fork dishes? What group does fork belong to? School supplies, clothing, or dishes? If you said dishes, you're right. A fork belongs to the dishes group. So let's move on to number 2, blue or do. What do you do with a fork? Think about where you use a fork. So we know fork is a dish. What do you use dishes for? If you said for eating, you're right. A fork is for eating. That's what you use a fork for. Now let's move on to the next part. What does it look like? So remember, we're thinking about the shape, size, and the color. Let's see, what does a fork look like? I see the fork has some long lines. The shape is kind of like a line, and then it has these other small lines at the top. It's also shiny. It's the color that you might not know the name to, but it's called silver. That's the color of this fork. Now let's do this next part. What is a fork made of? What's the material? So let's think about dishes, because we said a fork belongs to the dish group or category. What material are dishes made of? So we know that clothing is made of fabric. But dishes, what are dishes made of? And what's this fork made of? The color is silver, and it's kind of heavy. If you said metal, you're right. This fork is made of metal. You might have forks in your house made of plastic or metal too. Maybe take a look after you finish watching the video. This next one, pink, we're going to describe the parts of the fork. So go ahead and take a look at this fork, and let's think about the parts it has. So this part right here that I'm holding, this is the part you hold. It's also called the handle. And this part right here, these are called tines. These are little tiny pointy parts that you can use to stick into food and bring it to your mouth. This is the part of the fork you put in your mouth, and this is the part you hold. This part that you hold is called the handle. If you said handle, you're right. So I hold it with my hand, and then this part up here, those are the tines, or you could call it the pointy parts. The tines are what you grab the food with and put in your mouth to feed yourself. That's the parts of a fork, the handle and the tines. Let's do this part here, white or where you find it. So think, if you're gonna find a fork after this video, where will you look? If you said in your kitchen, you're right. I got my fork from my kitchen in my house. Forks are usually found in kitchens. Now let's do this last part. What else do I know? What else do you know about this fork? I bet you can think of other places where you could find a fork. Have you ever been to a restaurant? Restaurants are where you can find forks. Where else have you used a fork before? Might not be one made of metal, but maybe plastic. If you said school, you're right. You can also find a fork at school. I'm going to think about what kind of food I can eat with a fork. That's something else I know about forks. So you need to get food that you can stab with this fork. You have to put the pointy part in the food to pick it up with the tines, right? Can you eat soup with a fork? No, you're right. You can't eat soup with a fork because these parts right here, the soup will fall through. You're right. So what I know about forks is that you need to eat solid foods. What kind of foods can you eat with forks? I bet you can name 5 foods. Go ahead and think of your 5 foods. I'll wait. Have you thought of them? I'll share mine. Food you can eat with a fork is chicken. I can eat potatoes. I can eat fruits like strawberries. I can eat broccoli with a fork. And I can eat eggs with a fork. Those are 5 foods I thought of that I can eat with a fork. Did we think of the same ones? I bet you can think of even more foods you can eat with a fork, or any more information with a fork. You guys are doing a great job. Great, thanks for describing with me as we used our describing tool to describe a fork. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!